So that exam is done with. Yes, my dear friends, a very, very warm welcome each and everyone on Supergrads CAT YouTube channel. 2020-26 ka pehla examination is already done with. A lot of hopes were there from this particular examination because, CAT actually interrupted the preparation in between. And today we have with us Vijyaditya Singh. A very warm welcome, Vijay, over here. He is product owner CAT exam for Supergrads. And today we are going to look into the immediate exam analysis, what went well, what did not, while in this particular episode. How are you doing, Vijay? And how was the examination according to you?
I'm doing well, Rahul. Thanks for having me over. The examination was great. I talked to a lot of students immediately after as well. The initial sentiment, something that I resonate with myself, is that the exam was pretty good in terms of the VALR and the decision making bit.
Okay.
Uh, However, quants was the big villain this time. A
Okay.
clear demarcation and decrease in the number of attempts compared to last year.
Mhm.
The question number of questions were typically as we expected. There were seven sets, three each questions in the decision making, making it a 20 out of 21 questions. Compared to last year, decision making had smaller reading comprehensions, which made it easier to attempt all of them in the given piece of time. Similarly, when it came to the VALR bit, there were 26 questions.
Okay.
The questions were pretty easy. However, they had a lot of confusing options to choose from when finally selecting somewhere along the lines of CAT VARC itself. I would say out of 26, if you've done more than 18 right, you're in a great place to be in a 99 position.
Okay.
Uh, Coming to the quants bit, it was much difficult than the last 2 years. I would say anybody who's done 10 right questions out of 28 is in a great position to be in right now.
Let me
Honestly,
ask this as well.
the
Decision making is going to be decided or not.
decision making is going to be extremely important. I think anybody who's deprioritized decision making or put it towards the last mile would have suffered. As we already mentioned it in our channel previously as well, after our talk with the convener of
Convener.
ZAT, decision making was the highest scoring potential. Possibly somebody could have scored the entire piece right. It took less time than last year as well. So I think that was a great add on to anybody who could have done decision making in the first few attempts.
All the student audiences who are listening to us right now, right away, are requested to put your doubts in the live chat right now. I'm going to take it up. Vijay is going to answer because you have written the examination right now. A lot of thoughts may be running in your mind. I would be requesting everyone who is listening to us right now, just put it in the live chat. I'm going to put all the questions in front of Vijay. How are you going to rate the entire paper? Because you fragmented it and told that it was some part was easy and difficult. Was it easy, difficult, or moderate or brutal, according to you?
I would say the entire exam was either easy or
Okay.
extremely difficult. It was very difficult to transition between the gradients, especially section wise.
Okay.
You could assume the exam to be for decision making VLR comparatively easy to moderate side, but for quants it was as difficult as can be. Out of 28 questions, again, I recommend if somebody's done 10 right answers, especially there was a lot of geometry involved in these questions
Okay.
compared to last year, which was not the case. Uh, c- uh, Actually, in decision making and VLR, you could expect similar sorts of questions. In fact, one of the questions that we've already solved in our practice decision making series about relationships with bosses and all those things, or a very similar question was asked. However, in the quants piece this time, there were a lot of geometry related questions. A lot of them did not have diagrams. So you were supposed to create diagrams in your own head when you're solving for them. And these were extremely complicated diagrams compared to last year, which made the entire process extremely difficult.
Okay.
Not only were the questions difficult to understand and comprehend, they were also extremely lengthy.
Okay.
A lot of them were based around inequalities and the maxima minima probability, which required you to create equations and not just do the delineated part of solving algebraic equations. It required you to think a lot to come up to the maxima and minima piece, and hence I would rate the last piece as a difficult.
All right. So clear points being made by Vijay over here that geometry dominated in the quant segment, and in fact, he's clearly making the points. The paper was exhaustive because questions were quite lengthy. I would like to also ask you, Vijay, over here, were there some surprise elements? I mean, something surprised you immensely because we had a direct one-on-one conversation with convener, and something that actually did not turn up as he communicated that day.
So I would say the level of difficulty that was promised, particularly when we asked the ZAT convener around the difficulty levels, was that the level will be difficult, there will be sufficient time. And why I respect that the first two sections actually did have sufficient time for underscore. Uh, Somebody following the typical strategy of 60 minutes, 60 minutes, 60 minutes would have found it extremely difficult
Okay.
because decision making did not take more than 40 minutes this
All right.
time as expected. We were expecting it to be around 50, 55 minutes. This time, decision making could have been completed in around 40 minutes. Again, VALR could have been completed in around 45 to 50 minutes.
Okay.
Quants in itself, we were expecting it to have a cutoff of, say, for example, 60 minutes, but I personally did it in the last section, so I knew all the time that I had left was for quants.
Answer.
But somebody who would have typically started with
Quants.
the quants in that limited time frame would have found it extremely difficult and also have lost the confidence to be going with the paper forward.
All right, we are having one query in the live chat right now, and student is asking how many DI sets were actually came in the paper.
So there were 26 questions when it came to VALR.
Okay.
Some of them in groups, some of them individually.
No, he's asking related to DI, data interpretation. Were there some DI
Written
sets? Yeah,
specific DI sets.
yeah.
So you could expect almost 50% of all VALR to be data. That would mean 13 questions
Yeah.
of
Okay.
26 were related to directly data interpretation. These were also in sets, so they did not come as together. They were sets of two, maybe three. So typically, the pattern that was followed was there were two questions that were isolated, and then there were a pack of three that came
Okay.
along with it.
Let's deep dive a bit deeper now. I'd like to ask you which particular sections or the topics dominated each section. So VLR, according to you.
In DILR, I would say patterns dominated a lot and inequalities dominated a lot. Say, for
Okay.
example, sets around a number of people sitting together, number of people playing a sport. So, what they typically tried doing was they tried to give a practical application of every question. So instead of saying m cube plus n cube plus ab is equal to something, they would say there is a cube floating in a water tank. The side of one of that cube is m. When it strikes the next one, the sides look similar. So they tried to create an equation while creating a visual graph of it. That was the intent in the DILR piece.
In the
VALR piece.
QATI, which were the heavy topics or high weightage topics?
I think geometry was asked a lot more than last year.
Okay.
Geometry was heavily dominating this time. Then again, there were direct questions of functions, function of functions, which weren't asked a lot last year. Something that was asked a lot last year and was asked a lot this year as well. What the maxima and minima questions?
Okay.
Basically, three algebraic equations that needed to be solved using graphs.
Okay.
Those were asked a lot.
How would you compare it with 2025? I mean, in terms of level of difficulty, and not only that, I mean, in fact, if you overall do an analysis of this particular examination, what is running in your mind right now? I mean, what thoughts are coming to your mind when you compare it to 2025?
I think the biggest question that students have in their mind right now is if they'll be able to clear the quants sectional cutoff. I think that is the biggest thought in student mind right now. I would say decision making compared to 2025 was much easier. Decision making in 2025 was so lengthy.
Right.
Each comprehension took so much
So this time it
time
wasn't that lengthy, right?
this time it wasn't that lengthy. It
Lengthy.
was very easy to complete decision making in very quick amount of time.
Okay.
When it came to VALR, the difficulty levels were almost similar. It was just that the options in itself were a bit more confusing. You would not have a difficulty finding an answer. You will have a difficulty choosing which is the right answer amongst two or three. With compared to 2025, I would say quants was tougher.
Was the toughest task this particular time? All
Yeah.
right, let's move ahead and let me also ask, what's VLR, RC heavy or reasoning heavy?
I think VLR was extremely reasoning heavy. Uh,
Reasoning heavy. Okay.
Clearly reasoning heavy. There were no direct answers there. You could have attempted the entire piece of paper in, say, for example, 30-40 minutes, but you wouldn't know if you would attempted the right answer.
Right.
It was very difficult to eliminate options in the VALR piece this time.
Okay.
However, there were three, maybe four such questions. In other, you were comparatively in a better state, but like four, five clear questions in which eliminating options was extremely difficult.
Very difficult. All right. Decision making, more logical clarity or time consuming traps, according to you?
I think definitely it was not time consuming this year, unlike last year. So
Uh-huh.
that was a change in the strategy. Last year, it took a lot of time. It took me around 7 minutes to complete one set last year. This time, it took me approximately 5 minutes to complete one set. So it was a huge difference.
Okay. You've already answered this, but asking in a different tone now. QADI, more logic based or formula driven today?
I think QADI was more logic based,
Okay.
but required a lot of imagination. There were no
Okay.
clear steps that a typical person would, go by the book and just go around it. It required you to think. It required you to eliminate certain options just because of logical reasons that are not very obvious. Things that would require basically a person to think through and through the problem instead of just trying to solve it on a piece of paper and imagining or visually thinking about it.
How do you compare it to CAT 2025?
With CAT 2025, I think it was much easier. The first two
Much
sections
easier.
were much easier. Uh, you could consider the DILR difficulty levels of CAT 2025 to be the ones of quants at ZAT 2026.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
How are students reacting outside the center? Because you have seen a lot of them. Were they calm, panicking, smiling, confused, or in no state at all?
They were actually dumbfounded considering the fact that everybody started the exam with a lot of energy with the two good easy sections to be scoring. Hopefully, a lot of students were perplexed, particularly because of the GK piece that came towards in part two.
Okay.
Since the questions were a bit on the more difficult side, questions were basically revolving around Nobel Prize winners, some special days or new openings in certain cities when it comes to the Indian
Was it doable
economy.
according to you?
Yeah, anybody who would have prepared thoroughly would have been able to do the GK section. However, if you think it would go around just reading a newspaper, that was not the case. You would have typically required to read a summary book of all the events that happened,
Because it's
particularly
going to also
because.
be the decider because, for XLRI in particular. So I think we should also talk about GK. According to you, how much time did you take, and how many questions were easy according to you in GK?
So, GK question consisted of 10 minutes in which we had to answer 20 questions.
Okay, yeah,
Of
that's a
all these 20 questions, I would say five were doable easily by a person who's reading news on normal level.
okay.
I think anybody who's interested in probably space or just keeping a track of all those things, because that was also a very big thing that was asked
All
this
right,
time in GK.
space,
Yeah, space and satellites and a lot of
celestial bodies
those
and all.
things,
Yeah.
celestial bodies. That was again, I would say, a good one. And then there was some around entrepreneurship and
Entrepreneurship.
GST reforms and any up. So basically, anybody who knows static GK fair enough and has read the newspaper was in a place to attempt 8 to 10 questions.
Oh,
Anybody who specifically prepared for GK would have been in a position to attempt probably 12 to 14.
12 to 14. All right. Now the final question from my side. If you had 10 minutes extra, which section would you improve and why?
I would have definitely improved on the last section, quants. I think quants required this time actually a lot of focus study and the order in which the questions were placed in itself were extremely difficult. They placed all the difficult questions in the starting of the section. Some easy ones were not. You could never find that one sweet spot where you can find a lot of easy answers to go over.
All right.
One after the other, you would just face more difficult questions. Some were more difficult, and then some on the alternate were more time exhausting. So basically, it was designed to demotivate a student as much as possible towards the last when it actually got a bit easy and you could score at least 8 maybe 10 good easy questions.
All right. So we had Vijyaditya Singh right now. He is I'm Ahmedabad alumnus, so it is directly coming from horse's mouth. He wrote the examinations that for you guys to understand, so that he can put it in his words directly to each and every one of you. Thank you, Vijay, for joining directly from the center and taking all the pain of writing the examination. I'm sure it would have been an exhaustive day, but